Now it's, I want to get in your pants. I want to do this. I want to love you all night long. And oh, baby, you show 24/7.
Hip-hop was once a voice of truth. It rose from the streets, born out of Black pain, creativity, and resilience. It told stories of injustice, survival, and pride. It was the cry of the neglected, turning turntables and rhymes into a powerful weapon for empowerment. It uplifted communities, gave direction to lost youth, and inspired movements. But something changed. The positive, unifying message that once defined hip-hop was hijacked. Lyrics that had celebrated women, unity, and resistance began to glorify killing other Black people, degrading women, and worshiping money and vanity. Farrakhan warned that this shift was no accident. It was engineered. He explained how white-owned record companies and executives saw hip-hop's power and decided to control it. They did not share the pain of Black life. They only saw profit. And they knew uplifting music would never be as lucrative as music that promoted destruction. Corporate America began to push artists who rapped about drugs, violence, and disrespect, while silencing those who promoted unity and strength. This wasn't just business, it was cultural warfare. Artists speaking truth about education, empowerment, and revolution were pushed to the margins. Meanwhile, those who glorified chaos were rewarded with million-dollar advances, radio play, and worldwide promotion. Generations grew up believing that real hip-hop meant drugs, guns, and the exploitation of women. This was no accident. It was psychological conditioning. Hip-hop had been a threat when it spoke truth, so it was polluted until it spoke death. Now millions dance to their own destruction while those orchestrating it sit back and profit. Farrakhan called this a psychological war designed to weaken and distract Black people. When people lose their culture, their pride, and their message, they become easier to control. That is exactly what happened through the pollution of hip-hop.I in the South Bronx. Hip-hop began with young Black men using rhyme to pass on knowledge. Public Enemy, KRS-One, and other conscious rappers weren't produced by big record labels. They built themselves from the ground up. But once the money lenders saw that conscious rap could awaken an entire generation, they moved to corrupt it. They pushed the genre away from education and community toward gangster rap. They glorified guns and the worst aspects of ghetto life. They bought up radio stations and removed meaningful talk programs that once educated communities. Now the airwaves are dominated by songs about sex, partying, and violence, on repeat 24/7. They even promoted beefs between Black artists, turning music into a battlefield. East versus West, North versus South, Black versus Puerto Rican. Petty rivalries filled funeral homes and fattened corporate profits. The enemy didn't just take music, they took minds. When an oppressor controls what people listen to, what they watch, and what they repeat daily, that oppressor controls how they think, act, and dream. Farrakhan called many of our people dumb devils, not because they were born that way, but because they were trained to act against their own best interests. How many young Black men boast about killing their brothers yet own no land? How many wear expensive chains they don't own, drive luxury cars while drowning in debt, and live in neighborhoods they do not control? This is deliberate design. Corporate America spent billions making ignorance look glamorous and selling it as Black culture. They convinced young men that rebellion meant wearing someone else's brands instead of building their own power. Respect became falsely linked to violence, success to degrading women, and power to selling drugs. Once these lies became identity, destruction became inevitable. The enemy weaponized culture itself. Now the oppressor doesn't need to pull the trigger, Black people do it themselves. Chains are no longer forced onto necks, they're bought voluntarily in designer gold. Music videos push the same destructive images over and over. Men pointing guns at each other, women treated as disposable, drug dealers celebrated as heroes. This is not random. It's funded. Entire industries, record labels, private prisons, clothing brands, even funeral homes, profit from broken Black minds. Every time a violent album drops, there's a corporate contract celebrating the chaos it will create. But Farrakhan reminded us, we are not naturally like this. Black people are spiritual, creative, and powerful. It took centuries of slavery, Jim Crow, systemic racism, and now mass media brainwashing to distort our true nature. The Bible says God created man and woman in His image and likeness. Now look at what has happened to that divine creation. reduced to stereotypes and self-hatred under the deceptive work of the enemy. For centuries, the oppressor has tried to make black people hate themselves. From slavery onward, they spread the lie that black skin was a curse. They forced us to straighten our hair, lighten our skin, and reject our natural beauty. But blackness is not a mistake. It is strength, resilience, and beauty. It withstands the sun, fuels unmatched creativity, and shapes global culture. Even stripped of names, languages, and history, black people have created art, music, and innovation that influence the entire world. Oppressors fear this truth. That's why they spend billions promoting self-hate, because the people who love themselves are unstoppable. Farrakhan's message was clear. Reject the lies and reclaim your identity. See yourself as God sees you, beautiful, chosen, and powerful. Once that awakening comes, no enemy can stand against it. He also spoke directly to gang members. He condemned the killing, robbery, and rape happening within our own communities. You cannot demand justice from others, he said, when you are the number one slayer of your own people. On any given weekend in cities across America, it's black people killing black people. And this internal destruction makes it harder to fight external oppression. For centuries, the oppressor's favorite strategy has been divide and conquer. During slavery, house slaves were pitted against field slaves, light skin against dark skin, tribe against tribe. Today, the same strategy thrives. Gangs against gangs, neighborhoods against neighborhoods, rappers against rappers. Every feud, every online beef, every violent rivalry fills corporate pockets. The people funding these conflicts don't live in our neighborhoods. They don't lose sons to gunfire. They just collect the profits. Historically, black culture was rooted in family, unity, and protection. Those values have been deliberately replaced with chaos and rivalry. As long as we see one another as enemies instead of family, true freedom will remain out of reach. Unity is the greatest threat to oppression, which is why division is constantly fed. And this all ties back to stolen identity. Africans brought to this country were stripped of their names, languages, culture, and religion. They were denied the right to read, to learn, to understand. Generations were raised without knowledge of their original homeland. Even after slavery, black people were pressured to adopt the values of their oppressors. Success was defined by how closely you could imitate whiteness. Today, from fashion to music, much of what is called black culture is actually controlled by outsiders. Even hip-hop, originally an expression of black struggle and truth, has been twisted into a tool of destruction. Farrakhan's call to action is simple but powerful. Liberation begins with reclaiming identity. We must remember our roots, our culture, our greatness. We must reject the destructive images imposed upon us and embrace our authentic selves. Because identity is power, and once we reclaim it, no force on earth can hold us down. The question remains, who controls black culture today, and what will happen when we take it back? Is hip-hop still our voice, or has it become their weapon? The answer will determine not just the future of music, but the future of an entire people.